Lights go up, the crowd's in a buzz. Hawk talk start from mighty thud. Voices sharp like a razor blade. Breaking news like a wild cascade. Tune in now, it's time to soar. Hawk talk brings us what you're here for. Bold predictions, call it how we see. We're the voice that sets you free. Post on fire, you can't deny. Hot take sharp with no alibi. Game analysis deep as night. Get ready for an epic ride. Tune in now, it's time to soar. Hawk talk brings us what you're here for. Bold predictions, call it how we see. We're the voice that sets you free. We call the plays before they happen. Feel the rush as the crowd is clapping. Stand tall with your team above. Hawk talk anthem, feel the love. Tune in now, it's time to soar. Hawk talk brings us what you're here for. Bold predictions, call it how we see. We're the voice that sets you free. Tune in now, it's time to soar. Hawk talk brings us what you're here for. Bold predictions, call it how we see. We're the voice that sets you free. We're the free. Set you free. We're the voice that sets you free.
Welcome in. Welcome in. Here we go. All right. So this is actually the excuse me. So this is actually the very first premiere I have ever done on my podcast. We're still going to have the hour-long show. The kids are actually on fall break this week. It's been a very, very long weekend. Lots of work. Had a bunch of other stuff to get done, so my voice is definitely waning, but hopefully you guys are okay, and you'll be able to hear all the reactions and everything from a really good day of football. But let's jump into this, because I want to start with this. I want to start with James Franklin being let go from Penn State. Now, he was not the only coach to let go over the weekend. Oregon State also fired Trent Bray, who had started the season 0-7. Many of the Oregon State games had been blowouts, and it wasn't particularly close. Now, with how everything had played out, remember, Oregon State is going to be part of the Pac-12 next year. They get their conference back. They get the teams that they need to remain a conference. And that is what matters. That is exactly what matters. They wanted to keep the conference. They got the ability to keep the conference, and they're going to. Now, do I agree with firing James Franklin? Absolutely not. I know about his record against Michigan and Penn State, or Ohio State. Sorry. Ohio State. I know about those records. So what? You have built a perennial contender. The joke is they should never be ranked really high until they prove they can beat somebody. Michigan only beats somebody every once in a while. And it was only with Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, they won last year with Sherrone Moore, but this year the team is not the same. Okay? When Drew Aller went down, what I believe is that Penn State believed this is time for a reset. And they very well could be right. They very well could be right. I don't like it at all. He will get picked up. If I'm Oregon State, I'm hiring James Franklin in a heartbeat. You could own the Pac-12 if you hire James Franklin. There are multiple teams that are like, if you're going to get us 10 or 9 wins a season, we're good. If Oregon State gets back to winning 10 games a year, they're probably winning the Pac-12 every year. They're potentially on the cusp of the playoff every year. I could easily see this working in James Franklin's favor. Fresh start, new location. He didn't make bad moves. He didn't recruit wrong. He is an outstanding recruiter, a very good head coach. I actually think Kolanicki, it's his coordinator picks that I have the problem with. And now Drew Aller is hurt. We have another quarterback that is hurt, that going into the draft, nobody's going to know what to expect. And I feel bad for Drew Aller because that just took one of the quarterbacks down. Now, we got to talk about this because it was a fantastic day in Indiana on Saturday as the Hoosiers go into Eugene, Oregon, which, by the way, the Buckeyes can't do, and beat the Ducks in Eugene. And really just showed what type of defense that the Hoosiers have. It was an outstanding defensive display. It was a great game. I loved every second of it. Mendoza and Dante Moore was a really good battle. And if they end up meeting again, which I doubt at this point, but if they end up meeting again in the Big Ten Championship, it could easily go the other way next time. But I tell you what, the Hoosiers are now ranked 3rd in the country. The Hoosiers have put everybody on notice because last year they lose to Ohio State, they lost to Notre Dame, their quarterback was the issue, they have a legitimate quarterback now, and by golly George, guess what happens when you have a legitimate quarterback? You can win football games. You can win tough games on the road. And the Hoosiers went in to Eugene, Oregon, stomped on the Ducks, and stopped them from quacking. So, I absolutely love it. I mean, I love every second of it. It was great. Now let's get to the NFL. Actually, you know what? Not yet. We're going to close everything out with the NFL. We still have, it'll still be an hour show. So we're going to close the NFL. Let's go to Major League Baseball. So we had the NLDS final games over the weekend. The Dodgers we saw beat out the Phillies. We had then the Brewers and the Cubs game 5. And then we also had one of the most exciting games I have ever watched in the playoffs, the Seattle Mariners and the Detroit Tigers. What a game. What a game. Multiple jams, second and third with one out, first and second with no outs. Just the amount of mental fortitude both of those teams, the Tigers and the Mariners, showed in Game 5 of the American League Divisional Series. That was outstanding. The Mariners won that series in 15 innings, and I watched all of it. Dude, it just kept going on and on and on, and I loved every minute of it. It was outstanding. I loved it all. And then the next night, the Brewers knocked out the Cubs. Wasn't anything outstanding about what the Cubs did. They fell flat. The bats just did not come alive in the playoffs. And it was that simple. Then we also have to talk about the WNBA. The Aces did. I talked about it on Friday. I felt like the Aces were going to, and they did. They swept the Mercury. They came out. That game against the Fever, I really think woke them up. They got scared because the Fever had them on the ropes. The Fever had them, and then Mitchell gets hurt, and they kind of get let off the ropes. And then they go in, and they just beat the Mercury, and they beat them down, and they get another championship. So congratulations to the Las Vegas Aces. Outstanding performance in the WNBA Finals. Now, because we are sitting on Sunday night now, we do have to talk about the game that also just finished. The Mariners took Game 1 of the ALCS in Toronto. This game showed exactly how the Seattle Mariners can beat the Blue Jays. They have to stop the bats of the Blue Jays, unlike what the Yankees were able to do. Miller pitched 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. The bullpen pitched 3 hitless and walkless innings in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Clean innings all the way through. Kevin Guzman pitched 5 2/3, 2 earned runs, 3 hits allowed, 5 strikeouts, and a walk. So it's not like they did bad. It's not like they had a bad showing. Santiago Dominguez did allow a run off of 1 hit and 2 walks there in the 8th inning. But Cal Raleigh got a home run. Polanco got 2 RBI singles. And they get the victory in Game 1, which is huge. Game 1, 3-1 Mariners over the Blue Jays. All right. So let's get to the NFL. here. Which game should we start with? Well, I'm going to start with one where there was controversy at the end of the game. And I am on the side of everybody who says that there was a flag. There should have been a flag on Lemons in the end zone. The Arizona Cardinal fans are correct. There should have been. Lemons wrapped McBride, held the bottom of his jersey around his waist. McBride was pass interfered. That is 100% accurate. But sometimes you gotta get lucky. Sometimes you gotta get lucky to be able to win. What this game showed, though, is that the Colts have the Indianapolis Colts have holes. Jermaine Pratt, who was just signed, knows the system of Lou and played decent. I think that's a big pickup. But the reality is, we only had the Colts had 8 incompletions, but there was a sack, interception, no fumbles. Jonathan Taylor averaged 6 yards a carry today, and you still, I mean, you were down potentially in the fourth quarter, and you still just squeaked by Arizona. At the end of the third, you were down 24-17. The Colts scored 14 in the fourth quarter, and the Cardinals scored 3. The reality is the Cardinals didn't have much of a running game. 24 total carries for 88 yards, averaging 3.7 yards a carry. But Jacoby Brissett had 320 passing yards. Now, Charvarius Ward did go out with a concussion in warm-ups, and the video is wild. You want to know what else is wild? Okay. I know it's not... You don't want to beat a guy or kick a guy when he's already down, but the story that Anthony Richardson has a orbital fracture from a rubber band. Now, that rubber band, it's a stretch band. My wife goes, he was probably stretching with his foot, it snapped and came back and hit him in the face, which is probably true. But can we just, this is why he can't be a starter in the NFL. The little stuff like that, always being injured. Your best attribute is your availability. We have said it multiple times on this podcast, and you've heard it elsewhere as well. So Charvarius Ward gets a concussion in a really weird way. Just the pregame warm-up video confused the life out of me. And then you had just Richardson breaking his orbital bone. And then early on in the game, Marvin Harrison Jr., who was really ready to play this game, he had 2 catches on 2 targets for 32 yards. He really wanted to play this game. He was ready to go. He goes out with a concussion. So, in all honesty, the Colts are lucky to get out of this game with a victory. The Cardinals will probably be running with Brissett for at least the next week, if not 2. Kyler Murray didn't run this offense better than what Brissett did today. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 2 sacks for the Colts defense. The running game, like I said, wasn't great. The Colts had 27 rushes, 150 yards. They averaged 5.6 yards a rush. Jonathan Gannon is definitely in trouble. And we're going to play on Wednesday. We will play a game. Remember, last week we played Bet, Hold, or Fold. And this week, we're going to play a game on Wednesday called Fire or Ice. And it's going to be the head coaching position. We're going to play Fire or Ice. We are now through 6 weeks of the season. I have got all the statistics. We're going to go over the stats of running versus passing. And we're going to go through every single one of those this week as well. And can't wait for that. So on Wednesday, we're going to play Fire or Ice. Last Wednesday was Bet, Hold, or Fold. Many of you liked it. Thank you so much for the feedback on it. I enjoyed doing it. But the Colts get the victory, 31-27, and they escape. And sometimes you just need it. It's another lucky win. And you take them as you can get them. The London game was one of the most boring London games this year. It really was bad. The Denver Broncos beat the Jets 13-11. The Jets netted -10 passing yards due to 55 yards in sacks and only 45 yards actually throwing the ball. It was ugly, but the Jets are now 0-6. The future doesn't necessarily look any brighter. The Broncos are now 4-2. They also chose not to take their bye week after coming back from London. Now, I would have. Week 7, I would have taken the bye. That one to me is okay. But the Broncos are not. So we'll see if that hurts them next week. The Chargers escaped Miami with a miraculous play by Justin Herbert. Tua Tagovailoa was 21 of 32, 205 yards, a touchdown, but 3 interceptions. 3. Devon Achane had 16 carries, 128 yards. He averaged 8 yards a carry, had 2 touchdowns. He was on fire. But Tua had 3 interceptions. Justin Herbert was 29 to 38, 264 with 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. And Kamani Vidal, which it was only announced Sunday morning, this morning, that he was going to end up being the workhorse today. And he made the most of it. 18 carries, 124 yards, no touchdowns, but he did run all over that Miami defense. Ladd McConkey had 7 receptions. Oronde Gadsden, the second, had 7 receptions. Keenan Allen and Trey Harris both had 4. And it was a really good day for the Chargers as a team, but it took a miraculous comeback by Miami in the fourth quarter, and then a great move by Justin Herbert to escape pressure to get them in a position to kick the winning field goal. And you know what? It worked. It worked. So huge congratulations to the Chargers getting the W on the road against Miami. Tua already is now calling out players that weren't attending player-only meetings. That's where this is going in Miami. That's where this is going. Miami is in trouble. We've talked about this before, and it's really clear. It is really clear. Miami is in trouble. All right. Excuse me. The next game, honestly, a really big game, because the difference between these two teams is, I think, inches, not feet, and definitely not yards. The Carolina Panthers beat the Dallas Cowboys 30-27. And this game, to me, showcased still the lack of ability with the Cowboys and the fight that is left in the Panthers. Rico Dowdle had 30 carries, 183 yards. And then he had 4 receptions, 56 yards, and a touchdown on top of that, receiving. They will get Chuba Hubbard back. Rico Dowdle has been an outstanding fill-in. And honestly, if the Panthers can run like that, they can play with any team if they can get some defense. The problem is they don't have any defense. George Pickens ate them alive. 9 receptions on 11 targets, 168 yards, and a touchdown. Teteroa McMillan had 3 receptions, 29 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Bryce Young, 17 of 25, 199, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Dak Prescott, 25 of 34, 261, and 3 touchdowns. So the reality of this game is the Cowboys should have been able to do a lot more, but they had 19 carries. 19 carries, 31 yards. 1.6 yards per carry on the ground. And they lost. They lost. They are now 2-3. The Giants are right on their heels. The Carolina Panthers are now 3-3. They are 500, which is huge for Carolina. And they continue moving forward. Now, another team that got their second win of the season was the Las Vegas Raiders. This game, their defense came out 6 sacks of Cam Ward. The offensive line for Las Vegas, hang on, something doesn't feel right. There we go. The offensive line for Cam Ward has been failing him a lot. Does he hold on to the ball? Yes. But he was 26 of 38, 222, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, sacked 6 times. He did have 2 fumbles that were lost, but once again, the running game was very minimal. 15 carries, 65 yards, averaging 4.3 yards a carry. Now, the Raiders weren't much better. They had 32 carries for 68 yards, averaging 2.1, but Genti had 23 carries for 75 yards and a touchdown. And when you look at how this game was played, Tennessee could have won this game, but the reality is that defense, it just, the offensive line for Tennessee, this is now week 6. It's not all on Tennessee's offensive line, but I will give them 4 of those 6 sacks today. Cam Ward doesn't have the receivers that get open a lot. He's got a very good tight end. He loves his tight end, Chiga Conqueror, 6 receptions, 46 yards on 6 targets. Really, really good. Calvin Ridley was only targeted once. Ellick was only targeted 5 times. This team needs to find an identity. Last week, he threw some beautiful passes to bring the team back. And this week, it just wasn't even what they needed. This week, it did not work. So the Raiders are now 2-4. The Packers go to 3-1-1 with a big win over the Bengals. Joe Flacco starting for Cincinnati. That still looked really, really weird. Not going to lie. It looked really odd. But the Packers got the W the way that they needed to. The Packers played a solid game. It really started slow. But they ended up getting 10 points in the second quarter, head into halftime up 10-0. They're up 10-7 at the end of the third quarter. Joe Flacco, though, didn't really mess anything up here. No turnovers, which Jake Browning had a lot of previously. He has 219 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He was only sacked 1 time. Jordan Love, 19 of 26, 259, a touchdown, and an interception. He was sacked 1 time as well. Josh Jacobs ran all over the Bengals, 18 carries, 93 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Josh Jacobs en route to the Packers winning and are now sitting at 3-1-1. Which brings me, we will go to it, the Sunday night clash that was the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. So how do I think this game played out? Because I watched all of it. And there is something that I really, really noticed again. The Detroit Lions had 5 defensive backs out. Mahomes only threw for 257 yards. The penalty on Detroit's first drive took away 4 points. The roughing the passer on Aiden Hutchinson took away the opportunity of a big third down. And they had the ability to stop the Chiefs on third down. All those together just really, it put the Lions in a really hard spot. Because their secondary is not strong enough right now, and this is probably why Vegas had the Chiefs favored. The secondary isn't strong enough right now. Next week against Tampa Bay is a really tricky game, but we'll get to that Tampa Bay game next, because that game kind of plays into what happens now next week. It plays into what the Falcons have coming up. But Jared Goff only had 6 incompletions. 6. 2 touchdowns. He was only sacked once. Evaded pressure a lot. No turnovers. No turnovers. The running game, not as strong as we're used to seeing. 23 for 98, 4.3 yards a carry. But they stuck with it, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. The Chiefs, ran the ball 29 times for 112, 3.9 yards a carry. Pacheco had his best game of the year easily, but Mahomes still had 10 rushes for 32 yards. He's running a lot. Now the Chiefs are back to 500. They are in what I believe is next week will be the last easy game. They have their bye. Then they have the really hard part of their schedule that is after that. If they can float and maybe finish 5-5 after that stretch, I would say the playoffs are legitimately a possibility. If they end up 4-6 after that stretch, it's going to be really hard. You've got teams in the AFC that are ready to play, and you've got teams that are ready to take those 6 and 7 wild card spots pretty easily. And they're going to be there. You're probably going to have to win 10 games. 9 maybe for the 7th spot, but you're probably going to have to win 10. You're going to have to go 10-7. So the Chiefs are going to have to really knuckle down, get ready. They get Rashee Rice back, get their bye week. Hopefully they get healthy, and then after they come back, hopefully they're ready to play the toughest teams in their schedule easily. Now the Detroit Lions next week play the Buccaneers. And that game is huge because Tampa Bay beat the Niners today 30-19. Mac Jones had 2 interceptions. He was sacked 6 times. 6 times. It was a nightmare for Mac Jones. It was bad. Christian McCaffrey ran the ball 17 times for 54 yards, averaging 3.2 yards a carry. That is not a Kyle Shanahan recipe for success. The Buccaneers ran the ball 26 times for 104 yards, got 2 touchdowns out of it with both White and Tucker. Receiving, here's where it is. Now, I don't know what's going to happen this week with the podcast because of the kids being on fall break. We've got a bunch of stuff we're planning on doing. I don't want to take the full week off, so I will try to at least get in even if it's a smaller podcast, I will try to get in the podcast at 9 o'clock this week, but we'll see how it goes. I knew Monday I was going to be busy. We got something going on with almost everybody, so I knew that one I was going to be out. Hence why we are doing this recorded, and you guys are now watching it live. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once again got hit in the receiver room with another injury. Now, obviously, we'll go over all the injuries from the entire league in the next podcast tomorrow. But Ibuka going down is huge. Bucky Irving is hurt. Ibuka is down. So now they had Cameron Johnson, Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard. Godwin didn't catch a ball. He was out. Mike Evans is still out. It's not... Tampa Bay is in a really good spot because they can afford to lose. But because they can afford to lose, the Falcons need to take advantage of what is coming up. Now, for the 49ers, the Rams beat the Ravens today. We're not going to really talk about that because it wasn't really a game. The score was not indicative of how the game actually went down. The Ravens were playing for pride, and that was basically about it. They're out of everything. They need to look at next year now and do not rush Lamar back after the bye week. The 49ers, however, they need to get healthy, and nothing has currently gone that way. Christian McCaffrey, who has been injured a lot, is currently healthy and is the saving grace for this team. The 49ers are now 4-2, but they are heading into, so this is their schedule here coming up. So next week is a huge matchup at home, Sunday Night Football against the Falcons. The following week, they go to the Texans, then they go to New York to play the Giants. Here's why this is so big. Don't think that the Giants can't beat a team like the Niners right now. Don't think that the Giants can't go in there when they're home against a team from California and beat them. They easily could. That defense has played really well. It just shut down Saquon Barkley. It can shut down McCaffrey. Then they come back from that game against the Giants and they play the Rams at the Cardinals, which right now looks like those games will end up being a W because of how the Cardinals are playing. And then they got the Panthers, Browns, and Titans before they come to Indianapolis on a Sunday night football game. So for them, I would say the next 4 games are huge for them. Falcons, Texans, Giants, Rams. The Giants, I believe, are a better team than the Cardinals right now. The Panthers, they could nip at the heels, but I definitely think the Niners are better. I definitely think the Niners are better than the Browns, although, to be fair, that will be a California team traveling out in November to play the Browns. Weather is a great equalizer. When it's cold, when it's really cold, different things can happen. And then they play the Seahawks to close the year. So the next 4 weeks are really important for the 49ers. And obviously, we'll see how they play and close this stuff out. All right. The next game we are going to look at, like I said, we are not looking at the Ram game. The Ram game is worthless to look at. But the next game we're going to look at is a big win by the Seahawks against the Jaguars. Now, if you hear a game 20-12, Seahawks over the Jaguars, normally you're going to think, Lawrence really screwed this one up. Nope. The Jacksonville offensive line screwed this one up. And they screwed it up pretty badly. Sam Darnold was 16-27, 295 yards with 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 1 time. As a team, the Seahawks ran the ball 26 times for 60 yards, averaging 2.3 yards a carry. The Jacksonville run defense is really good. Really good. They need help in the secondary, as do multiple teams currently across the league. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 162 receiving yards and a touchdown. A.J. Barner had 71. Kupp had 40. Those are your 3 biggest. Now, you would think Lawrence didn't play great. Actually, he didn't play bad. 27 of 42, 258, 2 passing touchdowns. Here's where the difference was. He was sacked 7 times. So the Seattle defense was consistently in the backfield, and the Jaguars' offensive line failed today in protecting Trevor Lawrence. They also failed in giving any rushing room for Etienne, Tutton, or anybody. They had a total of 19 carries, 59 yards, averaging 3.1 yards a carry. Brian Thomas had a fantastic game. 8 receptions on 10 targets, 90 receiving yards, and a touchdown. But the reality is, the Jacksonville Jaguars once again have their defense, but the offensive line failed today. And they do have some big games coming up. Next week, they've got the Rams in London. That's a huge, huge game. Then they are at the Raiders, at the Texans, home against the Chargers. So the same thing as the Niners, the Jacksonville Jaguars are sitting right there, 4-2. The next 4 games will really set up how they're able to close out this season. It will really set up how they're able to close out the year, and it's really important. I think the Jags need to go 3-1. I think they can beat the Chargers. The Chargers are just, their offensive line is beat up, and you can move the ball on their defense. You can run on them. So the next 4 weeks are really, really important for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, when you look at the Seattle Seahawks, this was huge because the Niners lost. So now you're sitting right back in the mix there in the NFC West. You still play San Francisco again, but you also have those big games here against the Rams because you play them twice. So next week, they've got a huge matchup with the Texans. at the Commanders the following, or sorry, 2 weeks later. Their bye week is the week after that. Cardinals at the Rams. Those are your next four: Texans, Commanders, Cardinals, Rams. If you can go 3-1, I think you'll be pretty well set up. It is a three-way tie atop the NFC West between the Niners, the Seahawks, and the Rams. The most competitive division is always the West. AFC West, NFC West, outrageously competitive. Now, this week with the Texans and the Vikings on bye week, it does kind of take away a little bit as we start getting into the bye weeks. Next week is, I'm going to get this wrong, so I'm going to look it up just to make sure I get it right. That's right. The Bills and Ravens are on bye next week. So, Bills play the Falcons tonight on Monday Night Football, and then the Bears and the Commanders play on Monday Night Football. So, there you go. All right, a game that we'll just kind of skim over. Like I said, Rams beat the Ravens, and this was a defensive. Cooper Rush got pulled. Tyler Huntley came in. The Rams defense had 4 sacks. The fumble recoveries. It was a sloppy game by the Rams. Really what ended up breaking it open was a Kyren Williams check down pass for 30 yards that just finally got the Rams down the field enough to be able to just really close out the game. But there wasn't anything impressive in this game. Derrick Henry did actually run pretty good today. 24 carries, 122 yards, averaging 5.1 yards a carry. But everything else was pretty suspect. I mean, it was bad. The Ravens are now 1-5. The Rams are 4-2. They got the victory they needed to, but the game was just, it was bad. It was a really bad game. All right, the other game that we're going to just kind of skim is the Browns and the Steelers. Now, this game has a really weird aspect to it, and here's why. The Browns threw the ball 52 times. 52 times. Your rookie quarterback, you're going to have throw the ball against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense 52 times. Really? Why in the world would you have your rookie quarterback throw the ball 52 times? I don't get it. The Steelers get the W. They are 4-1. Aaron Rodgers, 21-30, 235 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The running game as a whole got 100 yards rushing, but they only averaged 3.6 yards a carry. The Browns averaged 3.8 yards a carry, 17 carries for 65 yards. Gabriel was sacked 6 times, but once again did not turn the ball over. 221 yards passing, no touchdowns, but did not turn the ball over. Their kicker, Andrew Zimet, that's what I'm going to say, Zimet, 3 for 3 on field goals. His long was 53. So they have a good field goal kicker. The Browns have some pieces in place. Dillon Gabriel did not play bad. He wasn't the reason they lost. I kind of like how that game went, but the Steelers did get the W, kind of as expected. All right, and then a game I really want to go over. The New England Patriots beat the New Orleans Saints. And this game is huge because coming off of a game like the Sunday night win over the Buffalo Bills, it matters to get back on track. Now, their running game was garbage. 31 carries, 73 yards for the New England rushing attack. That was awful, averaging 2.4 yards a carry. But Drake May was 18-26, 261, 3 touchdown passes. He was sacked 1 time. Kayshon Boutte had 5 receptions for 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. Demario Douglas had 3 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. For New Orleans, honestly, Spencer Rattler did not play bad. 20-26, only 6 incompletions. Probably one of his best games completion-wise that he's ever played. 227 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He was only sacked twice. As a team, though, running the ball, 23 carries, 73 yards. I did hear that Alvin Kamara is actually on the trade block. Alvin Kamara is actually on the trade block. Now, if the Cardinals were to have beat the Indianapolis Colts today, I would have said for the Cardinals to go get Kamara because Benson's hurt, Connor's hurt, Bam Knight is okay. I would have been like, yeah, if you can get Kamara for a fourth round pick, absolutely go get him. Absolutely go get him. But I don't think the Cardinals are the team to go do it. The Chargers, maybe. I could see a veteran being able to be second back when Hampton comes back. I do think there are a couple teams that Kamara could easily help. But the reality is it's probably going to take an injury, and we still have a couple weeks before the trade deadline. But Alvin Kamara is on the block, and he's an all-around back, and he's shown he's still got it. He's not been injured. Okay, he's got a nagging injury, but right now, who doesn't? Seems like everybody's questionable right now. We'll find that out tomorrow. But New Orleans played tough. They definitely played tough, but they dropped to 1-5. Patriots are 4-2, and it was a really good game for the Patriots. It really was. It was a very good game for the Patriots. So, honestly, sometimes it just ends up coming down to who played just a little bit better. And Rattler didn't play bad. He didn't hurt the team, but the Patriots are a really good team. The Patriots are a really good team, and I like where that team is headed. Man, do I like where that team is headed. All right, so we talked about Penn State firing James Franklin. We talked about IU knocking off Oregon. Let's talk about a couple other college games as we close this out. So Ohio State went into Champaign and really did kind of control the game, winning 34-16. They're still number one. They should be number one. That is clear. The other game, though, Alabama beats Missouri in a thrilling game. 27-24. Missouri absolutely deserves the ranking that they have. They are a tough team. And the road for Alabama doesn't get any easier. It's not going to get easier. So these games in the SEC, I suspect, will be really, really close moving forward. A game that I thought was going to be a lot different than it was. The Texas Longhorns beat the Oklahoma Sooners 23-6. Arch Manning probably looked the best he has all year. They played a more complete game. They win 23-6 over Oklahoma, giving them back a top 25 ranking, shooting the Oklahoma Sooners down. Mississippi barely gets by Washington State 24-21. Florida State lost again to Pittsburgh, which I actually did bet. I kind of just felt like Pittsburgh was playing really good. They knocked off Florida State. Georgia Tech wins a absolute. The game was a lot bigger in difference than it ended up being, 35-20. Notre Dame destroyed North Carolina State 36-7 due to North Carolina State making really bad turnovers at really bad times. They would get Notre Dame stopped. They get the ball, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it was bad. It was bad. Colorado upset Iowa State 24-17. Tennessee knocked off Arkansas barely 34-31, another SEC game that was close. A&M handled Florida 34-17. Auburn tried to compete with Georgia and did. Georgia only got by them 20-10. USC destroyed Michigan. Michigan decided to come in. They were trying to play tough. USC just used their speed and absolutely ran over them. Just absolutely ran by them. 31-13. Texas Tech crushes Kansas 42-17. LSU got by South Carolina 20-10. BYU in double overtime beats Arizona 33-27. And a pick that I had that I bet for the week, Utah beat Arizona State 42-10, and there is a big game coming up next week. But we don't need to go over that right now. All right. So for Hawks Locks this week, in the NFL, I went 2-1 again because I had the Cardinals plus 7.5, the Bengals plus 14.5, and I had the Browns at plus 6.5, and they ended up losing. So my Hawks locks for the week, 2 out of 3. Once again, above 500, made some money. And I absolutely love doing that. All right, my voice is going even more. I'm sure you guys can tell. Hopefully, I can recuperate. Um, Tomorrow, we've got stuff going on, but I should actually be able to relax my voice with how this weekend has gone. So, hopefully, tomorrow you can hear me more. I apologize. I did not want to not do a podcast, though, as it is my goal to be able to do one every single day, and I want to keep this going. Consistency matters to me. So I apologize if the volume is really low. The voice is just gone, and I apologize. All right, guys. Not going to do a really long outro. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for watching the premiere. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of your Monday. I will see you tomorrow. We'll go over the injuries. We'll go over any more news and obviously the Monday Night Football games. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today. I appreciate it. And we'll talk tomorrow. For Sports Talk with Hawk, I am Hawk, and I'm out. Have an absolutely fantastic night.